The midnight broadcast that haunts America, insane panic unleashed live. It was a night like no other in the little town of Millfield. The clock struck midnight, and the faded radio waves began crackling with an urgency that sent shivers down spines across America. A chilling voice emerged, echoing through the darkness. It was a broadcast that would be whispered about for years. Panic surged like a tidal wave as the host revealed the impossible: someone was watching, lurking just behind the veil of reality. "They're here," the voice said, a hoarse whisper that sent the listeners' hearts racing. "And they know your name." Was it a prank? Or something much worse? In homes across the nation, lights flickered, casting eerie shadows as families huddled closer together. A woman clutched her child, eyes wide with horror. "It's probably just noise," someone murmured, but the shaking in their voice betrayed their fear. Outside, a dog howled, as if sensing the impending doom. Each crack of thunder amplified the tension that had slithered into every living room, amplifying every heartbeat. Little did they know, their own fears were the bait for something far more sinister. Then came the first strange element: the sudden transmission of static, followed by a static-filled scream that pierced through the airwaves. It was real, and it was terrifying. Neighbors peeked out of curtains, whispers darting around about disappearances, about the midnight man who supposedly held sway over the very souls of the unwitting. The fear thickened, wrapping its cold fingers around the throats of listeners. A fact surfaced: this broadcast had no known source. Panic escalated as people scrambled for their phones, desperate to confirm what they had heard. Was it a hoax, or a deadly truth emerging from the shadows? Murmurs of doubt transformed into a roar of anxiety. The rumor mill spun faster. "They're saying someone went missing last week," one man blurted, his face pale as the moonlight. The air crackled with stories, weaving a web of dread around every heart. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the chaos grew, people were now glued to their radios, holding their breath in anticipation. Just when you thought it couldn't get worse, the voice returned, dark and twisted. "The midnight man is coming for you." A collective gasp escaped 100 throats. Nobody knew what came next, and that was the chilling truth. The victims of his chaos were real. Were they next? What did it mean to be chosen? The night stretched on, haunted by questions that hung thick in the air, leaving them all to wonder, what kind of game was this, and who would be the next to vanish? The storm raged on, wind howling as thunder rolled ominously. In Millfield, the stillness of midnight shattered. Streets lay deserted, a ghost town gripped by fear. The flickering streetlights cast eerie halos on the pavement, illuminating empty spaces that felt both familiar and foreign. Inside a modest home, Charlie sat rigid, radio pressed to his ear, eyes darting between the shadows in his living room. His heart pounded like a drum, drowning out the outside world. "The midnight man," he whispered to himself, each syllable a ripple of terror. He didn't believe in folklore until now. Not until he heard his name drift like smoke through the static-filled airwaves. "Charlie Matthews, you're next." The voice reduced him to stone. It could only mean one thing. Someone had pulled him into a nightmare, and it was all too real. Breathing became labored. He could feel the walls closing in, the air thick with dread. What kind of sick twist was this? He forced himself to turn away from the radio, to look at the darkened window, half expecting to see eyes staring back at him. Instead, only darkness met him. Across town, Sarah paced her small kitchen, phone clutched tightly in her hands. Her younger brother had gone missing just days ago, and now the world seemed to slide into madness. The broadcast taunted her. Every time the voice spoke, it felt like daggers piercing her heart. She had to connect the dots, find him before it was too late. Panic threatened to spiral her into despair, but she shoved it down, determined to keep her composure. "Sarah. Are you listening?" It was her mother's voice, strained and frantic from the living room. "What if it's true?" Sarah yelled back, desperation tinging her tone. "What if they really do know? What if she couldn't finish the thought?" A crash from the living room interrupted her spiraling mind. Heart in her throat, she dashed down the hall only to find the television flickering to life of its own accord. The static crackled menacingly before the screen burst to life. "We've got a live feed," a voice interjected between distorted images. It was shaky at first, but the figure in front of the camera came into view disheveled, wide-eyed, desperately looking around. "Help! Please, someone help!" The figure's voice echoed in a mix of fear and wild confusion. Sarah froze. It was too familiar. It was her brother, Jack. "Mom!" She screamed, her heart racing. "It's him!" But before she could say more, the screen flickered again, and the broadcast turned back to the ominous voice. "One chosen, one before midnight," it whispered chillingly. "Hurry!" he is slipping away in the depths of Millfield. Chaos descended like a shroud. From living room to living room, tension crackled nearly as loudly as the thunder outside. Names echoed, dread loomed, and with every heartbeat, anxious whispers filled the streets. As Charlie bolted for the door, determined to find the source of the broadcast, he heard audible footsteps just behind him. His gut twisted, and he turned slowly. Shadows danced in the corners of his vision. Were they real? Or was his mind playing tricks? With escalating cries and panicked breaths resonating around him, the truth hit Charlie. They weren't safe. No one was safe. And time was running out. The air hummed with urgency, a dark promise looming just beyond sight. Would any of them escape the reach of the Midnight Man? What happens when the clock strikes again? The rain lashed against the windows, tapping like a frantic fingers begging for entry. Charlie's heart raced as he peered into the dark embrace of the night, shadows twisting and flickering like phantoms. He had to do something, anything, before the Midnight Man claimed him, just as he threatened through the radio. "Where are you?" he muttered under his breath, stepping out into the storm. Each footfall felt heavier than the last, anxiety clawing at his insides. He couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching him from somewhere deeper in the darkness. Meanwhile, Sarah fought through the roar of the storm, determination pumping through her veins. The last image of Jack, pleading for help, burned behind her eyelids. She had to act fast. With a surge of adrenaline, she grabbed her jacket and bolted out the door, ignoring her bewildered mother's calls. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the chaos around her for just a heartbeat, and in that fleeting moment, Sarah swore she saw a figure darting down the alley. "Jack!" she shouted, but the wind swallowed her voice, making it lose its way in the night. Back in her kitchen, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She fumbled it out, breathless, and saw an unknown number flash across the screen. With trembling hands, she answered it. "Hello." A distorted voice crackled on the other end. "You shouldn't be out here. You need to turn back, it knows you're searching." "Who is this?" she cried back, but the call ended abruptly. Fear pulsed through her. What did it mean? What was it? Across Millfield, the atmosphere thickened as townsfolk stumbled from their homes, drawn by a magnetic terror gripping their hearts. Faces illuminated only by lightning revealed a spectrum of confusion, panic, and desperation. The once familiar street transformed into an alien realm, echoes of fear crashing against the somber night. In the growing crowd, someone shouted, "It's happening, isn't it? Just like the legends." Charlie found himself in the center of the brewing storm of humanity. "You all heard it, right?" he yelled, his voice breaking through the turbulent noise. "The Midnight Man is coming for us." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, concern etching deeper lines into every face. What are we supposed to do? Someone questioned, their voice wavering. Stick together. Charlie said, the urgency swelling in his chest. We have to find a way to stop this. His mind whirred. There had to be a way out of the mess, some way to divert the Midnight Man's attention. Just then, as if responding to their fear, a blaring horn echoed from the center of town. Everyone turned toward the sound, hearts racing. A van pulled up, trailed by a pair of headlights illuminating the rain. The doors swung open, revealing a pair of figures drenched but determined. Get in. One shouted, we can help you. The Midnight Man is not just a myth. A wave of skepticism washed over Charlie, but desperation won. With one last look back at the swirling shadows of Millfield, he sprinted towards the van. The others hesitated, fear mixed with hope in their eyes. As he climbed inside, the driver slammed the doors shut, making the shattering sound of the storm seem miles away. What do you know? Charlie demanded, breathing hard. Everything. The passenger grinned, eyes shining, and it's worse than you think. Before their response could sink in, the radio crackled to life, a gnarled voice resonating through the cab. Tick-tock, time is running out. They exchanged panic-stricken glances, the weight of impending doom stifling every breath. What secrets lay behind the Midnight Man's origin? What awaited now, with the clock counting down? The atmosphere in the van was suffocating, heavy with fear and anticipation. Charlie's heart thudded like a wild drum, fighting against the oppressive sound of the rain pounding against the metal exterior. The passenger, a tall guy with wild hair and a crazed glint in his eye, leaned closer, almost invading Charlie's personal space. Listen, we don't have much time. The Midnight Man feeds off your fear. If he senses it, we'll never escape his grasp. His voice, though urgent, also hinted at an unsettling excitement that made Charlie's skin crawl. What do you mean, feeds off fear? Charlie asked, trying to keep panic from seeping through his words. The others in the van exchanged fearful glances, the weight of his question hanging in the air like the storm that raged outside. Every terrified soul he claims gives him more power, the driver replied, fists clenched on the steering wheel. We have to face him. We can't just run. Sarah's face contorted in confusion as she processed this new information. Face him? You mean we actually confront this thing? The passenger nodded vigorously. Yes. The legends say there's a way to banish him. But we need to be prepared. We need to gather everyone, make them believe they are not alone. His eyes darted around the cab, as if checking for lurking shadows. Another crack of thunder echoed across the town, rattling the windows of the van and sending a ripple of shudders through the occupants. Charlie stared through the windshield, the downpour blurring the world beyond like a thick smokescreen. Yet in the chaos, he thought he saw something shifting in the distance. Look! He shouted, pointing. The driver slammed on the brakes, and they lurched forward. What is it? Sarah asked, anxiety rising in her throat. Near the old library. It's a figure. Charlie gasped, straining to see through the deluge. It might be Jack. With no argument, the driver swung the van toward the library, the sudden turn almost sending everyone tumbling to the other side. They barely made it inside the small side street leading close to the dark silhouette that loomed ahead. As they approached, shadows twisted and contorted, almost alive in the pouring rain. Stay close. The driver warned. The group piled out of the van, stumbling into the storm, a cacophony of thunder drowning out their footsteps. With shaking hands, Charlie pulled his phone out to illuminate the path, flickering light casting eerie shadows across the drenched pavement. Jack! Sarah yelled, her voice breaking. Where are you? Nothing but rain responded, as if the universe itself had turned mute. The old library stood forlorn, its windows shattered and dark, covered in creeping vines. The faintest sound, a whisper on the edge of a scream, reached Charlie's ears, sending chills racing down his spine. Suddenly, a gut-wrenching scream echoed out from the shadows. The sound sliced through the chaos like a knife, filling their hearts with dread. They all froze, rooted in place, adrenaline fighting to push them forward. "Did you hear that?" the passenger whispered, wide-eyed. "Come on!" Charlie shouted, breaking the paralysis. "We can't just leave him." As they moved closer, the air thickened with a heavy, suffocating dread, tangible enough to taste. Then, just as fear began to take hold, they spotted a figure stumbling out from the shadows. Jack, hair drenched and clothes torn, stood there, paler than Charlie had ever seen him. "Help!" Jack gasped, collapsing onto the cobblestone. But in that very instant, a low growl rippled from the darkness behind him. The air around them vibrated with a threat, a feeling of being hunted. Charlie's heart raced. What was this thing lurking in the shadows? Were they too late? "Run!" he shouted, gathering the courage that pulled at his soul, as dread loomed close behind them. Charlie didn't wait to see if anyone was behind him. His instincts kicked in, and he bolted toward Jack's fallen figure as thunder rumbled ominously overhead. The rain blurred everything, shadows danced, twisting and contorting in unnatural shapes. His heart slammed against his ribs like a drummer demanding to escape. "Get up, Jack. We have to go," Charlie shouted, reaching down to help his friend. Jack's skin felt ice cold under Charlie's grip, and his eyes were wide with terror, as if he could see something hovering right behind them, but Jack wasn't moving. "I can't, he's here," he gasped, his breath hitching on the words as the low growl morphed into a rumble that reverberated through the ground, rattling Charlie to his core. Sarah grabbed Charlie's arm, her eyes wild. "We need to move now." A flicker of movement caught Charlie's eye. Just beyond the ruins of the library, a darkness stirred, coalescing into something disturbingly human-like. It shimmered at the edges, a long shadow with an essence that screamed of despair. The Midnight Man. Charlie felt a wave of nausea wash over him. "Now!" Charlie screamed, forcing Jack into a standing position despite his friend's feeble protest. They couldn't linger. The growl rose in pitch, cruel and mocking, sending a shiver through the air, thickening the humidity like a wet blanket. With every ounce of strength, Charlie hoisted Jack's arm over his shoulder, pulling his friend along. The van was just a few steps away, a beacon of hope amid the storm. But as they staggered forward, they heard it again, a whisper curling beneath the din of rain and thunder. "Stop!" The sound was chilling, like fingers trailing down a spine. Charlie glanced back, his heart crashing in his chest. The Midnight Man's figure had stepped into the rain, the outlines of a face obscured yet disturbingly familiar, like a warped reflection of someone they once knew. "Go!" he yelled as dread coursed through him. He pulled Jack closer, feeling his friend's body shuddering under the weight of fear. They pushed toward the van, but the shadows around them thickened, coiling like smoke. "What do we do?" Sarah's voice trembled, panic cascading over her. "Get in!" the driver barked, already halfway inside the van, urging everyone to hurry. Charlie threw Jack inside, followed by Sarah, who struggled to keep her terror at bay. The passenger was fumbling with the door, his eyes darting nervously, as if he could see the wraith creeping closer. Charlie glanced in the side mirror just in time to see that lurking shape extend a hand, a gesture that felt like an invitation and a threat combined. Before everyone piled in, a deafening roar sliced through the air. The Midnight Man had breached that invisible line of fear. "Go! Go! Go!" Charlie shouted, and the driver slammed on the gas, tires squealing against the wet pavement. But instead of relief, panic surged as the dark form dashed toward the van, impossibly fast. The headlights flickered wildly, illuminating the silhouette that seemed to stretch beyond the confines of reality. Shadows clawed at the van as if trying to pull it into the night, merging with the heavy rain and becoming one entity. In an instant, the van jolted as if struck, and lights flickered again, darkness swallowing them. Charlie's breath hitched, a lump of courage cemented in his throat. What was that? "Nothing can outrun him," the passenger yelled, shaking. "He'll follow us." The driver cursed under his breath, white-knuckling the wheel. "We need to find a place to hide, we can't run forever." Sarah cried. "What do we do when he finds us?" But Charlie knew. They needed to confront it, to face the source of their fear head-on. A twisted thought crossed his mind. Someone mentioned banishing him. The group fell silent, breaths held, hearts pounding. Could they really confront the Midnight Man? Did they have any chance at all against something that fed on their fear? As the van sped down the rain-slicked road, Charlie's heart raced with the knowledge that every second spent in flight scattered their hopes further. To stop the Midnight Man, they had to gather the scattered remnants of their courage, but how? They had no idea what awaited them next, except for the ominous promise that the Midnight Man would not be easily shaken off what could be their way out of this terrifying game. The rain fell heavier now, drumming against the van's roof, drowning out their mounting fears. Charlie leaned forward, voice steady. "We can use what we know about him. The stories somebody must be mentioned how to fight him." Jack, still barely conscious, shivered against him. "It's not like fairy tales, Charlie. This is real. Just think. What did we hear from that creepy old guy at the library?" Sarah urged, eyes darting to the rearview mirror, scanning for shadows that danced in the dying light. Charlie racked his brain. "He said something about fear. You can't let him in." Was that it? Or was he just grasping at straws? The driver, a guy named Mike, muttered under his breath, "Well, running isn't working. If we're gonna face him, we need to do it smart." The engine roared defiantly against the relentless storm as Mike rounded a corner, jerking everyone side to side in their seats. The headlights broke through the gray haze, illuminating an old church up ahead. It looked abandoned, a perfect place to hide and strategize. "Pull in there!" Charlie shouted, fear clawing at his throat while adrenaline surged. The van screeched to a halt outside the dilapidated structure. The door flew open, and they all stumbled out, rain soaking them instantly. Visibility dropped to nearly nothing, but there was a palpable shift in the air, a chill that wasn't just from the weather. "Hurry!" Charlie urged, ushering Jack and Sarah toward the door, each step echoing in the hollow emptiness. Inside, the church had an eerie stillness, broken by the occasional drip of water from the stained glass windows, where rain painted wretched patterns of color on the floor. The shadows lengthened as they caught their breath. "What now?" Jack whispered, clutching his stomach as if trying to hold in the fear. "We need to find something," Charlie replied, glancing around. Shivering and dizzy, they trudged through the pews, searching, tearing apart the old picturesque pulpit, hoping for any scrap of lore that might grant them strength. Sarah was the first to find something, an old leather-bound book wrapped in cobwebs. "This was here," she murmured. "Maybe it has something." Charlie snatched it and flipped through the musty pages, revealing rituals and incantations. His heart raced, each word like a spell echoing from the past. But then, a loud bang from outside made them all freeze. The Midnight Man could be near. "Did you hear that?" Mike whispered, eyes wide. "Stay quiet," Sarah hissed, clutching the book like a lifeline. Tension draped over them like a shroud as their breaths came slow and shallow. The growl from before, the one that reverberated through the ground, sounded again, but this time closer, rumbling like a storm. Suddenly, the door swung violently open, rain cascading in, pushing aside their fragile sense of security. The shape stood silhouetted against the chaos, a looming figure that seemed to absorb the light, growing larger and more imposing. "Stop running," it beckoned, voice deep and dripping with menace, wrapping around them like a noose. Charlie could feel the terror clawing at him, but something deep inside pushed back. They had a chance. He glanced at the book, then at Jack and Sarah. "Together!" Charlie shouted, raising the book defiantly. "We have to believe we can stop him." But just as they steadied themselves, the Midnight Man stepped closer, eyes glowing with a malevolent hunger. "Belief won't save you," it taunted, stepping forward. As dread pooled in the pit of his stomach, Charlie realized the true horror of what they were up against. It wasn't just the Midnight Man they had to battle, it was the darkness within themselves that fed him. His heart raced. They were on the very edge, but could they really confront their greatest fears? Their only chance lay ahead, but it was a risk that could cost them everything. How far would they go to reclaim their freedom? The midnight man's laughter echoed through the church, a sound that twisted inside their chests like a knife. Charlie felt his pulse quicken. Was this the end? They were paralyzed, momentarily captivated by the creature's looming presence. Its features blurred in the shadows, but those glowing eyes pierced right through them, pricking their very souls. "Fight him!" Charlie yelled, instinctively stepping forward, casting the old book like a shield between them. "We can do this." The midnight man paused, tilting his head, a sick grin spreading across its face. "Do you even know what you're doing?" It hissed, the words like venom. Jack, still pale and trembling, found his voice. "The book. It has something to help." He stumbled forward but faltered, fighting nausea. "Then read it." Mike shouted, urgency lacing his tone. "We don't have much time." With shaking hands, Charlie opened the book and began scanning the pages, desperate for clarity amid the chaos. The words leaped off the page, rituals mingling with ancient symbols. They were just letters, but desperation infused them with power. He flipped to a passage that spoke of light dispelling the darkness. "Here!" Charlie called, trying to drown out the horrid anticipation crawling over them. "We need to create light. It says something about using your fear against him." "Fear?" Sarah exchanged quick glances with Jack. "Isn't that what he feeds on?" "Exactly." Charlie shot back, digging his heels in. "We have to turn it around. Use it to burn him away." The midnight man stood motionless, the grin fading slightly as their courage swelled. "You think you can use fear against me?" It snarled, voice crackling like thunder. "No. We're letting go of our fear." Charlie yelled, determination flaring in his eyes. They couldn't surrender, not now. Drawing on their shared panic, they formed a circle, connecting hands, hearts beating in rigid unison. Each of them unveiled their deepest fears. Jack poured out the suffocating dread of loss, Sarah the haunting isolation that crept in at night, and Mike the years of failing to protect those he loved. Charlie wasn't spared, the weight of failing his friends and himself rattled within him. "Channel it!" Charlie cried, pushing the words. "Feel it, then let it rise up. We aren't alone in this." A luminous glow began to form in the pit of their hearts, flickers of light igniting in their palms. Increasingly, it cascaded over their hands into a golden ray, powerful and warm. The air thickened as the midnight man recoiled, surprised fear shadowing its contempt. "Stop this!" It screamed, but the brightness grew, bathing the room in an ethereal glow, expelling the gloom inch by inch. The midnight man lunged forward, but they stood firm, pulling on the light, embracing their fears, feeding the radiance that propelled them. "Together!" Sarah cried, her voice ringing like a bell, echoing across the walls. The entity, once terrifying, began to dissipate, wailing as the light consumed it. Charlie's heart hammered in his chest, adrenaline coursing through every fiber of his being. It was working. But in a moment of distraction, the ground trembled, and a rift opened at their feet. The light, while powerful, was not the end. It was merely a doorway. "Look out!" Jack yelled, pointing as shadows poured forth from the gaping maw, blending into the very darkness they sought to escape. "Timely escape," Mike gasped, pulling Sarah back as the ground cracked. "What now?" The midnight man's visage surged back momentarily, flashing across their vision, hungry and lurking. This isn't over it spat, echoing as the darkness expanded like a tidal wave. Charlie's stomach dropped, realization crashing over him. They had not defeated the monster. They had only stirred something deeper, something that would come back for them, stronger, with a vengeance. As they stumbled backward, Charlie gripped the book tight. "We have to seal it. There's got to be something in here." But before he could flip through the pages again, the shadows swallowed the space around them, and Charlie understood the stakes had risen. The Midnight Man was just the end of the beginning. What buried truths awaited them on the other side of the rift? The shadows curled around their feet like living snakes, a suffocating darkness that clawed at their minds. Charlie's breath hitched as he stared into the abyss below. The rift shimmered ominously, and he felt an urge to cling fiercely to his friends, to the book filled with hope. Yet horror gripped him as the pungent scent of decay rose from the depths. "Charlie, what do we do?" Sarah's voice trembled, barely a whisper against the cacophony of whispers swirling in the shadows. I don't know." Charlie stammered, desperation coloring his words. "Maybe there's a way to push it back. It has to be in the book." "Move!" Mike shouted, yanking Charlie back as tendrils of darkness reached up, curling around their ankles. He struggled against the constricting hold, the shadows squeezing tighter, as if recognizing their fear. The Midnight Man's laughter erupted again, this time more sinister, more tangible. "You think you can escape me? I thrive in this dark." In that moment, the group felt their resolve waver for just an instant. The laughter echoed loudly, turning their thoughts inward, feeding a sense of dread. Jack staggered back, the color draining from his face as memories of past mistakes flooded his mind. "No!" Charlie shouted, forcing himself to break that spell of despair. "We made it this far together. Gather your strength. We can't let him win." They huddled closer, grounding themselves in each other's unwavering presence. Fear twisted in Charlie's gut, but beyond that, a flicker of stubborn determination ignited. They could use their connection, the light they deconjured moments before. Charlie thrust the book out, flipping through the pages desperately. Ancient scripts whispered guidance, igniting new possibilities. "Here. We need to channel everything, the light, our fears, all of it. Together." Sarah urged, rallying the group. "Release it all at once. No holding back." They clasped hands tight. The cold sweat of fear dripped down their foreheads, mixing with the rising heat of their spiraling thoughts. With a shared breath, they poured everything into that one moment, their regrets, sorrows, hopes, and the way warmth rose in the face of darkness. The luminescent glow rekindled, illuminating the corners of the room, pulsing like a heartbeat. It radiated outward, piercing through the swirling shadows. Charlie could feel the Midnight Man's haughty laughter falter, panic creeping into its tone. "No. You will suffer." It shrieked, trying to reach for them, but the rays of light pushed back. The ground beneath them rumbled fiercely as cracks spiderwebbed outward, but they held their ground, feeding light into the earth, pushing back the darkness seeping from the rift. It boiled and bubbled, contorting into grotesque shapes, writhing with anger as their connection became a shield. "Now!" Mike shouted, forcing every ounce of strength behind their combined light. With reckless abandon, they unleashed their emotions. An explosion of blinding brilliance erupted. The shadows screeched, curling backward like tendrils caught in a firestorm. The rift began to seal, the Midnight Man's figure becoming distorted, flickering like an old, faulty projection, but just as it seemed they'd conquered the night, a new terror echoed through the chamber. A mocking voice reached out from the depths. "This is only the beginning, foolish children. You cannot run from what you are. I will always find you." The final words slammed into their ears with a deafening resonance. The shadows frothed wildly, twisting into a vortex before vanishing into a chasm of silence as the last tendrils withdrew into the rift. The sudden stillness left them stunned. Charlie stood panting, covered in sweat, the book clasped tightly to his chest. What just happened? Had they won? His heart sank as they collectively stared into the rift, now a dormant scar in the ground. The fight clearly wasn't finished. What do we do now?" Jack's voice trembled, his eyes filled with unresolved fear. "We need to understand what we're really dealing with," Charlie said urgently. "If he is still out there, if he knows us, then it's time we uncover the truth. We can't be blindsided again." And as the chilling winds whispered through the remnants of darkness, it became clear, the Midnight Man was not just a foe, he was a harbinger of something much worse. What unspeakable horrors awaited them now, hidden in the shadows of their past? The silence was heavy, wrapping around them like a thick fog. Charlie's heart raced, each beat echoing in the eerie stillness. They had pushed the dark back, but it felt like a temporary reprieve, like a pause before a violent storm. "It's hard to believe we even made it through that," Sarah whispered, her wide eyes scanning the room, searching for something to ground her. "Yeah," Mike said, his voice barely more than a breath. "But we aren't safe yet. We need to figure out what he meant. What does he know about us?" Before they could delve deeper, a strange sound pulsed through the air, a low, droning hum that vibrated within their chests, a sound that felt both foreign and unsettlingly familiar. "What is that?" Jack murmured, dread creeping back into his voice. "It's coming from the book," Charlie said, holding it closer. The pages rustled as if stirred by an unseen breeze. He could feel an energy radiating from it, pulsing in sync with the hum, drawing them in. "Open it!" Sarah shouted suddenly, her fear overpowering her hesitance. "Maybe it's trying to tell us something." With trembling hands, Charlie flipped open the book, desperately searching for answers. The words glowed faintly, illuminating their faces in an otherworldly glow. "Look!" Mike pointed, and they all leaned in, eyes fixed on the fresh words that began to form on the page, as if being written in real time. "Every shadow has a story and yours is entwined with mine," it read, the words shifting like smoke. A chill ran down Charlie's spine. "What does that mean?" Jack asked, his voice nervous but sharp. Is it talking about us?" Sarah questioned, her brow furrowing in disbelief. "Nothing we've done can be linked to this. Everything we've done has led us here, right?" Mike said, a note of urgency creeping into his tone. "Don't you remember? The last time we came here, the rift started to open the moment we read from that stupid book." "Maybe it's a warning," Charlie stammered, piecing together fragments of memory. "The Midnight Man is tied to our past, to the mistakes we've made. He's using our own fears against us. Then how do we fight something that knows us so well?" Jack's hands shook, his eyes darting as if the shadows might materialize again. "By learning everything we can," Charlie replied, steeling himself. "We can't keep running away from our past mistakes. We need to confront them, expose them for what they are." The hum crescendoed, drowning out their voices, filling the room with an almost hypnotic resonance. It beckoned, urging them to dig deeper into the darker chapters of their lives. Boldly, Charlie continued to read, each word drawing them deeper into a spiral of yesterdays. "Together, we forged the darkness in our hearts." The words felt like barbs, each one striking at their vulnerabilities, truths they had buried beneath layers of normalcy. "Stop!" Sarah cried out, clutching her head as memories flashed betrayals, failures, and the sting of lost friendships. It was too much. The shadows returned, swirling at their feet, reclaiming lost ground. Charlie's pulse quickened, panic gripping his chest. "We can't let it take hold again. Focus," Mike urged, stepping closer. "Remember the light." In a sudden burst of recognition, they recalled the warmth they had felt before, a flicker of hope amidst despair. Channeling all their pain into resolve, they joined hands once more. With their joined strength, they began to shout their truths, sharing their regrets, reliving their worst moments, and letting the shame and pain wash over them like waves. As their voices rose, the hum intensified, mixing with their declarations. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as their light began to grow stronger. But in that moment of unison, a new revelation broke through. A vision of the Midnight Man, framed in shadow, but this time he appeared more like a puppet master, strings connecting him to every dark moment they'd ever faced. "What if we are the key to his power?" Charlie whispered, realization dawning. "What if we are the source of his strength?" The room shook violently as the echoes of their past grew louder, matching the intensity of their light. They had to decide: would they continue to confront the darkness of their history and reclaim their power, or allow it to consume them? The ground trembled beneath them, threatening to swallow them whole as the chain of shadows snapped tighter, wrestling for control. "Charlie! We're running out of time!" Sarah screamed, her voice cracking against the weight of their spiraling fear, but before Charlie could respond, the book erupted into flames, illuminating their surroundings with a blaze of desperate light. In that moment of brilliance, a vision of their future flickered before them, a future marred by darkness unless they confronted the very truth they had been running from. What if the Midnight Man isn't just our enemy? Mike shouted over the roar. What if he is the key to understanding who we truly are? And as the flames danced higher, consuming everything they thought they knew, a shadowy figure crept closer, and a chilling truth settled over them like frost. The past was about to become their greatest weapon or their ultimate downfall. Could they wield their own dark tales as strength, or would they be crushed beneath the weight of fear? As the flames danced wildly in the dim church, consuming the old book and casting flickering shadows on the walls, Charlie felt an undeniable shift in the air. The Midnight Man had retreated like a cruel specter, the haunting laughter fading into the corners of his mind. But questions loomed larger than the flames. What now? They had aimed to seal the darkness but instead seemed to have triggered something profound. Every person blinked back fear and uncertainty, looking to one another, spiraling through their thoughts until Charlie finally broke the suffocating silence. "We need to confront him," he insisted, voice steadying. "No more hiding. We can turn our history into our greatest power." Sarah nodded slowly, unable to break the weight of dread but desperate to cling to hope. "If we can harness our past and make him face it with us, can we really use it against him?" Jack's face tightened. "But what if we fail? What if he knows us better than we know ourselves? What if he does?" Charlie snapped, the energy sparking between them igniting courage he didn't know he had. "We're not just our fears. Look at how far we've come. We've survived the worst, the pain, the betrayals. It's time we reclaim that strength." With newfound resolve, the group clutched each other in a tight circle, breathing in unison, drawing warmth from their shared presence. The air thickened around them, pulsing with determination. They began to speak their fears, every confession a barrier against the darkness creeping back. "I was afraid of losing you all, afraid I'd never be enough," Charlie admitted, his voice trembling slightly but firm. Jack stepped forward. "I keep thinking I'll never get back to who I was before everything changed." His words broke something deep within Sarah. "I thought I'd never feel safe again, that I was destined to be alone." Mike added urgently, "I lived with the guilt of not protecting my loved ones." The Midnight Man's chilling voice wafted through the air, tauntingly mocking them. "Your fears don't scare me. They feed me." But as he spoke, the light ignited inside their hearts, spreading warmth through the dark corners of the room, countering the Midnight Man's malice. "You're wrong!" they shouted in chorus, voices rising above his fade. They poured their fear into the floor, creating a vortex of light so blinding that it lit the very shadows of the past, forcing the Midnight Man to back away. His true form flickered at the edges of his dark essence, faces familiar and lost within his body, aspects of them as they once were. They were tethered to their biggest regrets but could feel the sphere of energy manifesting around them, lighting up the room brighter than the sun. "You will not win!" Charlie roared, channeling every ounce of his strength as the light cascaded like a wave of gold. "We are not just our mistakes, we are more than your illusions." With renewed energy, they surged forward as one, charging at the Midnight Man. They embraced their past but wielded it against him, no longer shackled by fear's chains. Instead, they danced skillfully through it, pushing all the light they could muster toward the darkness lurking within him. The enemy's screams echoed, piercing like 1,000 jagged shards. "No! You shouldn't have come here!" he howled, shadows swirling violently as his form began to destabilize under the pressure of their collective strength. "Together!" they cried. With one final, powerful shout, rays of light exploded in vibrant hues of orange, pink, and electrifying gold. Their emotions transformed and propelled outward like a beacon. They struck the Midnight Man, and in that moment, he erupted into a chaotic burst of darkness, an implosion of shadows flaring out. The energy radiated through the church, cleansing the unsettling air. When the dust settled, silence washed over them, the shadows dissolved like mist before dawn. The oppressive weight was gone, the midnight man defeated, breathless, they stood amidst the aftermath, the church now just a relic of a hard-fought battle. Did we do it? Jack stammered, the remnants of fear still present in his voice. Charlie looked around, his heart racing yet strangely calm. No more running. We faced our fears together. He extended a hand, pulling each of them closer. We've proven we can overcome anything. Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes, but they were glimmers of hope now rather than despair. I feel different. Lighter. Mike smiled weakly, exhaustion mingling with relief. We forged something together we never realized was possible. The four shared a collective embrace, the warmth of victory replacing the chill that had gripped their hearts. They might not fully understand what the Midnight Man was, or the darkness he represented, but they had forged a bond stronger than shadows. As dawn broke outside, illuminating the remnants of their battle, a sliver of peace replaced the stormy night. The clock struck a new hour, an hour of potential, friendship, and hope. A distant whisper tugged at their minds, remnants of an ominous warning, but they chose to hold on to their memories of this night, forging them into stepping stones rather than barriers. And now? Sarah asked, wiping her tears. What do we do next? Charlie smiled. We live. We keep living our lives and make sure we never forget how strong we are, how light can always extinguish darkness. We've learned to face our fears. We're ready. As the sun broke through the clouds, warm rays washed over the old church. The shadows of their past lingered at the edge but could do no more to serve the Midnight Man. They would face whatever came next, together, but this was just the beginning. There were more stories waiting to be told and more lessons to learn, and together, they would embrace whatever lay ahead with courage. So, if you've made it through this journey with us, remember to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next thrilling adventure. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. And be sure to flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. Let's hear how this ending resonated with you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Each action makes all the difference for this community, and if you're a true fan, you know the importance of being engaged.